is hard. It comes at you fast, doesn't it? So is being an entrepreneur. You see people with the cars, the boats, the homes, and the travel. What you don't see is how many times they've failed, how hard they work, and how often they bust their butts. This is the Get Real Podcast. Get Real Podcast. We have a lot going on. We talk about life, mental health, business, ups and downs. And we have on some of the most exclusive entrepreneurs in the business world. People that have done it. No BS. No pump you up mentality. Just keeping it real and raw. Let's do this. This is Get Real. And this is your host, Mark Lyford.
So today we have Brad Gosse on the Get Real podcast. I've known Brad for 24 years plus, maybe a little bit longer. And Brad is someone that has always thought outside the box, thinks differently to many people, and somebody I always go to for different thoughts. Welcome, Brad. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, buddy?
Good. I'm really good. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Anytime.
So just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you're based, all of that stuff, just generally, and then we'll dive in.
I'm turning 49 this year, and been an entrepreneur since I was 24. I like to say CEO since 24. You know, and then a few years ago, I decided. I think I always wanted to be a comedian, but I can't do the starving part of the artist. I have to just do the artist. I need to be the rich artist or the wealthy artist, not the starving artist. So I couldn't do in the 1990s and 2000s, comedy was still a real struggle. Now you can do it online and make a living at it, and I didn't, I have a low tolerance for hunger. I like snacks, so I can't be broke. So recently, a few years ago, decided to become a comedian. Just, dropped everything I had done up until then and used my marketing skills and started to try to make people laugh and found a niche. And here I am 3 years later and doing what I love.
It's been a journey, and it's a journey I've followed you on. We'll come to that in a little while, more about what you're doing now. But going back a little bit, like I say, we've known each other for a long time now, and we grew up together kind of years ago in the late 90s in the same industry, and we've known each other since. And you've constantly adapted. You're always doing new things. And like I said earlier, you're always thinking outside the box. And that's one of the things that I would, if somebody says, what about Brad Gosse? I'm like, you are a genuine out of the box thinker. And you've helped me many times. And one of the times I remember is when I was starting again back in 2009. But scarily is a long time ago again. So literally my life started again. Just for the audience who don't know the story. And I had constantly been in touch with you as best I could be in the situation. And so I came out of prison. And
I was hoping you weren't going to continue to call it the situation. I was waiting for you to say,
no,
is he going to say, or is he just going to call it the situation?
It's all out there. So I'd done 2 years in prison, and I had tried to learn this marketing stuff online more, what they call internet marketing, which is a phrase I hate. I mean, what is internet marketing? But it's kind of like known as a little niche that's on its arse now, really. And while I was inside, I learned a lot. I was going through books, courses, DVDs, the best I could. So I came out. And one of the problems you have in there is that you invent in your head that life is going to be great when you're out. And of course, being out is great. Being back free is great. But some of the things that you think are not necessarily accurate. It's not as easy as you maybe think it is when you invent it in your head that it's going to be great when you're out. And that was the situation I found myself in. So really, from the lowest of the low, starting again, I said to you, okay, so what I've got is a MacBook Pro, a mobile phone, a roof over my head, and that's it. What do I do to start making money? And you came up with the idea of, well, you have GarageBand on your MacBook Pro. It's built in with Macs. I'd never used it before, but you said you got that.
It's GarageBand for the North Americans.
GarageBand, if you speak properly. So you said, well, you've got that. That's a free resource. And why don't you start doing royalty-free music tracks? So I went off. I learned. It's not that difficult, but it took me a day or two to get my head around it, messing around. And that's what I did. And I went, and my very first digital product was 30 royalty-free music tracks that I went and created myself. I think I was one of the first people to, I mean, there's loads of the stuff around now, but I was one of the first people to create royalty-free music tracks. And it made over $4,500. And that's what started me again. And it's that you've got a gift for being able to think about stuff like that. And I like to think in the time that's gone, I've adopted some of that thinking, and I've helped people in similar situations, not prison, but what do I do? And, you know, it's using the resources you've got. And that's what started me off. And then I went on to create other sites, built them up. I was on Flipper for a while. I think we did a site together, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And that's what started me off back making money online. And I'll always remember that, because you took the time. Yes, we're friends, but you still took the time. We used to do, in fact, we're on a podcast now. I said to somebody a couple of weeks ago, somebody said, oh, podcasts, everybody's dog's doing them. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the right time for me with where I'm at now. And I said, actually, it's not the first time I've done this. You and I kind of inspired by the Dig Nation, I think. If you don't know what Dig Nation is, if you don't know what it is, go and Google Dig Nation. Those guys were the first to do what we know now as podcasts, and ours was called Knobs or No BS. And we used to sit, you being in Canada, me being in the UK, and within months of me starting again back that time, so it was 2009, 2010, we were one of the first people to do podcasts as people know them now. And that lasted, I can't remember how long it lasted for a while, but we did it. And it's funny how you've definitely always been at the beginning of curves and new trends. And I, to my detriment, sometimes have been way too early. In fact, I recorded a podcast, a short one of my Get Real Quicks, a couple of days ago, saying that timing is everything. Not in the context of what we were doing. We weren't really doing it for any other reason than just shooting the breeze every week of what we were doing. But it's funny how, you know, podcasts now are so popular. Could be argued that it's too crowded a place, but I'm not doing it from the
that's not it at all. It's the media's landscape has changed. We live in a completely different world now than we've ever lived in before, and you know, people watch less TV than ever before. My kids, they don't watch any TV at all. They barely watch Netflix, but they're on TikTok and YouTube and all these other platforms. YouTube, I was on a call. I have a rep at YouTube. They're doing 30 billion views a day on their Shorts platform alone. Their TikTok sort of competitor. So, you know, that's the attention has shifted to the place where the podcasters are. You know, I don't want to listen to talk radio in my car. I want to listen to Two Bears, One Cave with Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer, or, you know, like I want to listen to a podcast. I want to listen to people talk about relevant stuff for me. And, you know, everybody loves it when two white people start a podcast. It's, oh my God, I was waiting for another podcast with two white males. Everybody, so exciting.
Yeah, I know what you say. But
Hey, it's two white guys. What's their opinion on abortion?
yeah. Well, I decided to do it because with the real entrepreneur stuff I'm doing, and I prided myself on within social media, as I've been very honest. Most social media is BS. It's only the good stuff in Instagram, and I've been one of the few people that I know of to talk about the bad stuff as well, and that's real, and that's why the podcast is called Get Real, because we talk about anything and everything. Well, what's interesting is, obviously this is very early days of the podcast. The Get Real quick ones that I do, which is just me talking about a particular subject, 5 minutes or less, get a lot more downloads than the longer ones.
Yeah, people need short content. Absolutely. Yeah.
Which goes against what we're doing today, but people will get value out of it, and
the boomers can still take on the long content. So
you're famous now within your circle. You got over 1 million TikTok followers now.
Let's be clear. I am properly fucking famous. Okay, let's not be, like, don't say there's no circles anymore. I get recognized on the street, my friend. So I am proper fucking famous now. You hear that? You hear that, haters? Proper fucking famous.
I told my 19-year-old son, who lives his life on TikTok, that I'm doing a podcast with you today, and he's like, "That'll be cool." That's how famous you are. 19-year-old kid in the UK, not just because he knows I know you. I've got some kudos.
Dude, there's nothing cooler than being a 48-year-old man relevant to teenagers. Like I couldn't be happier that they are signing off on my comedy. It's like, fuck, it's perfect. It's perfect. First of all, right? I don't want my audience to be geriatric, because they're all going to die soon. So they're useless to me, right? They're running out of cash, right? Young people are making waves. They're starting businesses. They're hustling. They got money coming in. They're doing crypto. These kids are on the ball. They're going to retire my ass. So
good approach. Target market.
Love kids.
Target audience.
Love teenagers. Come at me. Bring money.
When I was talking about being at the cutting edge of stuff and early to stuff, Brad, so the audience knows, Brad was the man that got me into this whole rabbit hole that is crypto. So I've been in crypto for 10 years plus now.
Bitcoin bros for life.
Oh, geez. Brad called me up one day and he's like, "Have you heard about this Bitcoin thing?" I'm like, "No." Spent half an hour, whatever, talking about it. I'm like, "I'm hooked. I'm in." And you'd spoken to a few people before. They didn't get it. I was on it. I was all over it. And from that day onwards, I've been involved in crypto to, sometimes to my detriment, but I'm still here and I'm still doing it. And yeah, you were responsible for this whole rabbit hole of crypto that I'm in. But yeah, so audience of 18, 19-year-olds is what you love. And I was, so the first time I'm again, see, I sound really old, and I like to think that I keep up with trends, but I think I'm reaching a point where I'm probably getting old now, because I don't really spend any time on TikTok. And sitting in the lounge a couple of months ago with my son, he's on TikTok and he's watching you live, and you had got like, I don't know how many thousands of people watching you. And the comments are like, you can't even read the comments. It's going that fast. And I'm like, this is mind blowing. I only caught the last 5-10 minutes of it. But what a transition in 3 years. And how do you find it? What's the journey been like to get where you're at now? Because like I said, we spoke about, I think you got 5 books on Amazon at the time. And I don't get some of your books. Some of them I don't get them. Some of them I find really funny. I look at the people that you bring on as guests and you ask them which one you want to read out. And they are bowled over the fact that they're talking to you. This is the power of the platform you've built for yourself. So we spoke, and you said I got 5 books. I'm like, well, you just need 100 then.
I remember that. Yeah.
And how many books have you got now?
121.
Wow. 121 books on Amazon. You've got the TikTok platform, over 1 million followers. So how's the journey been? What's the ups and the downs? Let's get to the reality of what it's been. Because again, on the face of it, 1 million TikTok viewers, followers, great. But for people listening, to make that transition, what's been the journey really?
Well, I know you like to talk about the difficult stuff.
Well, I don't like to talk about it, but
no, but that's what this is about.
Yeah, I don't want to gloss over the like.
I get it. Yeah, anybody can talk about the highlight reel.
The Cliff Notes.
Yeah,
started 3 years ago, got 1 million TikTok followers. Great, but
yeah,
it's not. I know it's not all been easy.
No, I mean, just being on TikTok is that platform is the most difficult in terms of censorship. It's the most difficult in terms of you're like pegging your audience there and having them constantly look, what I do, I'm an edgy comedian, right? So my comedy is on the fringe, and when you publish 121 books and you read them all on social media, everybody likes you until you trigger their thing. Till you and in 121 books, I'm gonna find the thing that agitates you, because nothing agitates me. So I don't have a line, but everyone else has a unique line, and it's funny how I'll come out with a new book, like my newest book.
Just so people who are listening to this who don't know you and know what you do, show some of the people some of the books you got.
So this is my newest book here. It's called Star Whores: Sex Workers Across the Galaxy. Why Daddy Hits Mommy: A Kid's Guide to Understanding Alcoholism. I have Cucumber Curtis Can't Come to Dinner. I have Clip Clop the Racist Horse Cop.
It's one of your most popular ones that people want you to.
Sex Offenders Trying to Be Good in Your Neighborhood. I have Thirst Traps: Why Mom's Phone is Always Blowing Up. We're Not Camping: Mom and Dad Lied We're Homeless.
Yeah, we get it.
So each one upsets a different group. You can't make fun of homeless people. You're punching down. You can't make fun of, like, the Star Whores one. They're like, we call them sex workers now. It's disrespectful to call them whores. And it's like,
really?
They're aliens. They're not. We made them all up. They're not going to get offended. I checked. I got them all to sign off on being called whores. They're cool with it. Like, they get upset. Like Clip Clop the Racist Horse Cop. They're like, how dare you? That's racism. And it's like, okay, talking about a thing is not the same as the thing. But so I trigger a lot of people who follow me to a point, and then they're like, this was the one, I can't anymore, and I'm like, okay, thanks for coming with me so far. It was nice knowing you. Goodbye. Like, so there's those people, when they get triggered, they report your stuff on TikTok. And if enough people report your video, it gets taken down. If enough videos get taken down, you get removed. You get deplatformed from TikTok. That was my biggest fear. Because I was constantly getting videos removed, losing appeals, like Clip Clop the Racist Horse Cop, banned on TikTok for hate speech, totally okay to read on Instagram and YouTube. Nobody else minds, but TikTok minds, because the audience is younger, and some younger people don't like comedy. There's a generation growing up right now that does not like comedy. They're just they take everything you say seriously.
Do you think it's that, or do you think they're just more easily offended?
Well, I think it's because they take everything seriously. And so they can't hear you talk about a thing, right? And I make a lot of jokes about, like, every one of my books can be labeled as something: misogynist, racist, sexist, elitist, whatever you want to call it, right? But that's the whole point. Everything's tickling something. But that creates a lot of negativity in my world, because I have to deal with these community guidelines violations and always be worried about losing my TikTok account. Now, I have recently that has become less of a problem for me, because I've learned, and it took me a long time to learn, because nobody ever, with community guidelines, nobody ever tells you. They don't write to you and say, hey, this is the reason why. They're just like, this was banned for hate speech and we're not going to get into any detail with you. And you're like, okay, now I got to figure out why. But I've learned now there are just certain topics I don't even bother with on TikTok. So I would say about half my videos don't even make it to TikTok. They make it to, 100% of my videos will make it to Instagram Reels and to YouTube Shorts. 50% of them will make it to TikTok. But I spend less time on TikTok now because my YouTube following is growing so quickly. YouTube is very easy when it comes to community guidelines. I've never had a violation. So that was really hard in the early days. It's less difficult now because I've kind of dialed it in, figured out what I can and can't do. I've gotten to a point where I have a representation at these platforms. I actually have access to people. I have a rep, and so that makes that a little bit easier too, right? Because now you have someone to talk to. Early days, that was a problem. Also, early days, the problem in the early days was, is this a thing? Is this big enough to be a thing? At 5 books, it's making a little bit of money, just enough. But was it going to be a thing? Was this going to be, when you said, I remember clearly you said 100 books. I remember thinking, yes, I can do that. Is that, if the numbers track from 5 to 100, is it worth it? Do the napkin math. And it made sense to do it, but it was still, is it worth it? Is it a thing? You have to question yourself along the way. So that was probably the hardest part. Now the hardest part is dealing with the fact that even though I know having negativity and having mean comments is good for the brand and it helps me, and I need to get to a place where I let go of giving a fuck what people are saying, because I'm constantly being attacked for one and I don't want to sound like I'm a victim here. You know what I mean? Like I get what I'm doing. I understand I'm opening myself up for it, but like every book I post, if you look at the comment section, especially on YouTube commenters are nuts. Like they're the meanest people on the planet. If you have a YouTube account just to comment, you're probably an asshole. And I read them all, and I respond to a lot of negative ones, and in kind of a mean way. But then it's funny to see how many people get mad. They're like, "Why won't you respond to criticism like an adult?" And it's and then I'm like, because people will say, they'll tell me, you're ableist or you're this or you're that. They'll call me something. My favorite is when they say, you're just a 50-year-old man, you dumb racist. And it's like, okay, you can't be woke and ageist at the same time. You're going to make fun of me for being old and then call me racist. You're in the same bucket now, and then they're like, ageism isn't a thing. And, like they get all mad. And so, you kind of, and it's easy to mess with people, or they call me a name and then I'll say, one of my favorite things to say to people. And I just have like and it's so funny because someone called me out on it, but I have like a bucket of canned responses. Right. And someone said to me, why don't you write some original replies? You're replying to the same comments with the exact same thing. And then I'm like, haters and trolls don't deserve original jokes, bitch. Like you don't get that, and so one of my favorite responses is, cool story, bro. Did your daddy love you too much or not enough? Right. And like, they want to be mad and they want to argue with you so badly. And then whatever they say, because they never answer the question. They're always like, you are an immature prick or whatever. And then I come back and then I'm like, I guess it was too much. Maybe you should see a therapist, and I just agitate. And then like, so that now is kind of like a place I need to get out of, is this like wallowing in the negativity. But on the same token, as a comedian, as a white cisgender male comedian, these people are hecklers in my comedy club, and I can deal with them any way I want.
Yeah.
And being an asshole to them is part of the game. So
it is a game, and the whole hater troll thing's a game. If you treat it like a game, it doesn't.
So that's the negativity that I have to manage. Outside of that, like now, it's and I know it's only going to get easier as time goes by. I've got 3 more books on my hard drive right now, ready to be published. I'm like, my goal is 1,000 books over the next 3 years.
Wow.
And, and my like, I want to stop doing them, but at the same time, they're profitable. It's working. Why not just keep going?
Why do you want to stop doing them?
Because I want to shift gears. I want to, because the audience is growing and because the attention is growing. My hope is that I want to start producing like some original content, like an actual, 24-minute, like proper pilot TV show. I'm working on it. It's like a back burner project. It's like a big thing I'm working on in the background. But I've got puppets. I got 3D models being made of some of my characters. So I'm working on a bigger thing where I want to be able to have like on YouTube, produce my own TV show exactly in the format of a regular TV show, so that if a network, Adult Swim, for instance, or Comedy Central, or Netflix maybe wants to pick it up, they can see that the formula is working on YouTube, and then say, okay, this is an easy bet. And, throw your boy a few $1 million check and we can talk. Like, it's simple if you're watching.
Simple.
Hit your boy up, Brad at bradsy.com, and we'll talk. We'll do business. I'll fly out, we'll go for lunch.
We'll talk.
And I'll suck whoever's dick I gotta suck.
So with the trolls,
let's make a deal, okay?
Make a deal.
Let's make a deal.
I'm sure they'll listen. With the trolls and haters, it is hard not to engage. From my point of view, I've had my fair share. It's hard, especially when it's a little bit different to your situation. When people are saying out and out lies about you, that's what I find hard. I have got no problem with people hating or trolling on me for things I have done or said. When people start making shit up about you, that's when I have a problem. And that's when I start engaging.
But you can't control that either.
No.
Right. And so that, trying to control something like that, and when they see you're engaging, they get more angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So for you, when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, you almost need to go to a place where you are trolling them back. Rather than engage, but engage in a completely different way.
Well, I've changed my approach now from 5-6 years ago, and it is a game now.
Yeah,
it's a game, and the game, it doesn't affect me mentally. There's no negativity there. It's just a game. So kind of like what you're doing, but in a different context of it. And
like I would respond to any lie about me with, cool story, bro. I heard you were breastfed until you were 7.
I might use that one.
Do you remember your mom's tits? Like, just be vulgar, be a dick. You know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, clearly this guy, you know what I mean? Like, do it. Like, that's how I handle people. I'm just like, come at them with a more elaborate lie, and then let them fuck with it, and just let them get mad,
I might use that one. So, I mean, you've done projects in the past. You've always been into the animation stuff. You had a company which you sold off before you went on this full-time journey called Vector Toons. That was a hell of a business as well. You sold that off, and you're doing this now. And you've already said where you see the future. You want to be able to produce your stuff on YouTube, which I think is a cool idea. I can see that happening. And like you said, let the checks start getting signed.
Yeah.
And but talking about more, so I mean, we'll talk at the end where people can find you. But moving on to kind of more other stuff, a bit more generally, I have some questions that I like to ask people, and I just get people's entrepreneurial ideas on it. How do you find? How have you found working with business partners in the past? I'm in a partnership now, a 4-way partnership with Untitled Crypto, which is going well because we're all the same age, similar values, we all know what we're doing. But in the past, I've really struggled with partnerships because type of person I am, I like to lead. I like to be in charge of stuff. It's about knowing your own self. But it's really good because where I'm at now with that partnership is, I'm leading it 10 years in crypto and everybody else knows what they're doing and they're happy with it. But how have you found partnerships in the past?
Mostly bad. And maybe not for similar reasons, because I'm okay not leading, although I prefer to lead. I don't work well with others. I don't play well with others. I'm and I find, and I've had a multitude of business partners. Actually had lunch with my buddy Mark yesterday, who I've been partners with in a few different businesses. And it's one of those things where, like, when you butt heads with these people, because it's not an if, it's a when, how does it look afterwards? And for me, I have a really hard time, with conflict, not with the conflict itself, but with forgiving people afterwards. I'm I don't know. I feel like once things, and maybe it's because I'm an only child and I never had a sibling to fight with. We could go into the therapeutic reasons. Maybe I miss my foreskin. You know, but it's like there's something that makes me just, like, kind of like, there's very few people who I can have a conflict with where, like, they're not kind of dead to me at the end. So, it's hard for me to have business partners for that reason. And I find that when I want to do something and there's any resistance, that's when I'm like, okay, you know what, this isn't working. And so what I do now, it's funny because I'm actually in contract negotiations with another comedian right now on a project. And it's not, a business, it's just it's a product. But we're in negotiations right now. It's a 50-50 partnership. And he's kind of, he's getting a lawyer to look at the contract. He's never done a partnership before, so he's going in a little bit scared, and I understand. Because I've done it so many times. I'm just like, let's move, and he's like, I need to get this right so I don't get screwed, because he did something with another comedian, and the guy took all the credit. So, but it's different now because I feel like these are like we're birthing these projects, and these projects can go places, but it's not necessarily a business in itself. It's just a product that we'll probably end up licensing or selling to somebody later. And it's always just going to be 50-50, right? So it's not, but so that seems easier than, like, oh, let's start a company and let's divide shares and let's who's going to do the banking? You know what I mean? Like, that gets a little bit different. More.
Yeah, partnering on a product or a project is different to full on. We own companies together.
So those have worked out well for me. Like, you and I partnered. We said earlier, you and I partnered on a Flippa project that worked out well for both of us. And it's also nice when there's kind of a defined start and end point, right? Where it's like, hey, we're going to build this business together, and we're going to sell it, and we're going to take the money, and we're going to go our separate ways, right? To me, that's easier than, hey, let's start this thing with an infinite ending. Some company we're going to have to, file taxes for 7 years from now when we hate each other. I don't know. It's like, I love right now, I own 100% of my business right now. And I love it that I don't ask for permission. If I want to take on an expense, there's nobody to talk to, and obviously, like, my girlfriend and I, we talk about it all the time, and I constantly kind of run ideas by her, and, but she's not coming at it from the place of, oh my God, can we afford to spend this money? She's not looking at it like that. I'm just saying, hey, should I do this idea? And she's looking at it from, is this good for your career? Not, can you afford it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or is this feasible? Like, so when you have a partner that's looking at the finances, they inject fear into it, right? Like, your business partner is going to say, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. Can we afford that risk? And if you're like, yeah, I want to do the risk, and the other one's like, no, I don't want to take the risk. Because here's the other thing, I think this is an important distinction, because in every partnership, there's a cowboy and a conservative, and I have been both, right? So the cowboy's the one that's like, woo, let's go spend the money, let's move, we got to make money, we got to do this, let's big things, let's do the big thing, let's get on the horse and go to the trade show and get on the plane and buy the advertising, right?
That's me.
But it's not. But here's the thing: it's not always you. So most of the time, I'm that person. A couple of times, I've gone into business with guys that are crazier than me.
Wow, that's a
right?
lot. That's something.
Like, I had a buddy. I was partnered with him back, in the adult industry days, and we went to Vegas for a conference. The conference, you've been there, and we went to a strip club. We were business partners, and without consulting me, he goes like this: lap dances for everybody. And there are people in there that aren't even there. They're not even in there. They're just tourists. And he's so drunk, and he pulls out the corporate Amex, and I'm like, put that away. That's not. And he's like, well, no, we're here on business. I'm like, shut that down. He ends up paying for it on his own Amex, and then tries to expense it to the company a couple of weeks later. And I'm like, dude, I'm not like, and I had to be the conservative. And on the same token, that guy has dragged me into decisions that were extremely good. So, so like, he also came to me and said, hey, I want to put on this party, and it's going to cost a whole lot of money. And I was like, I don't know, it's a lot of money. And he was like, look, these are the reasons why this makes sense. And I'm like, okay, let's try it, and like, but I was the scared one. So I think, in different partnerships, you may be different people. And, my buddy, Justin Popovich, who, we did a couple projects together, and I was the cowboy in that one, right? Where I'm like, hey, we got to do this. And he's like, I don't know, and there's always one partner that's that person. And, it's difficult to be either person, right? Because the person who's scared is, both people have the same thing that they want. One person wants to move ahead and gain. The other person wants to keep. And if the cowboy makes a mistake, the conservative has to manage it, right? And so there's a lot of you need both people.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You need and in a partnership, you need a creative and an organizer, right? Like, if it's two people, one of you's got to be the thinker and the idea person, and the other one's got to be the one to make sure everything happens. Because creative people usually can't manage details.
No.
So, so you got to have these people, and you got to know in advance, hey, I'm the creative in this team, you're the organizer, and both people have to be okay with that. Because if you both think you're the creative, there's going to be a problem later.
Yeah,
right? If you both think you're the cowboy, there's going to be a problem later.
That's why I'm pleased with what I've got going. It's the only partnership I've got. I've got some other projects down the line, but like they're a project or a product. But I'm pleased with it because, like I said, everybody kind of has their own thing. I'm not an organizer. Yeah. I'm not a details person. And
know your role and shut your mouth.
Well, know your role and know your strengths, know your strengths. Yeah. And I think with age you get that as well. But that's because we're mid-40 white people that are talking about knowing our strengths.
That's right.
So
just remember the secret. Wish for the universe to hand it to you, and it will if you're white.
Oh God, I read that book. What a waste of time that was.
The secret is to wish for things.
It's but let's move on. Have you had
On this week's episode of Make Believe Entrepreneur, we're going to talk about the secret.
But this is the thing. This is why I've set up Real Entrepreneur, and why I've set up Get Real, the podcast, because there's so much bullshit out there. You know, I was saying on a podcast a few weeks ago.
Are you talking about hustle culture? What are you talking about? Bullshit.
Well,
like what kind of? There's so many bullshits now. Which bucket of bullshit are we talking about? I mean,
well, one observation first of all, not necessarily in the US or in Canada, but 20 years ago in the UK, if you said you wanted to be an entrepreneur, a lot of people laughed at you. Now, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. No, you know what I mean? A lot more people want to be an entrepreneur than there used to be. And then I hear a lot of advice, you know, the hippy dippy bullshit, think and you'll be rich. And no, go and fucking work your ass off and you'll be rich. I've learned from you to try and be smarter in my thinking. That's something I've definitely picked up from you, rather than just work. You know, have a plan and direction. And one of my problems was in the past that I had, you know, 0 to 100 million and nothing in between. And you learn as you get older, obviously, but there's just so much. Yeah, and there are different categories of bullshit now. But like, I see so much, especially on Facebook, social media, like, you know, people portraying, especially in crypto on Instagram. I laugh at some of the stuff that's out there. Like, nothing, it's not being ageist, but young kids driving around in Ferraris. This is how I made money. No, you fucking didn't. You probably rented it. You probably, you know, the private jets, the villas, you know, people are renting.
But that's always been there, right? Like the business opportunity world has shifted gears and gone over to crypto.
I think it's so much more out there now. There's so much, maybe it's age, but I think there's a lot more going on. You can go and rent a villa for a day and have your Instagram photographs taken. You can go and sit beside a private jet, pretend it's yours.
But hasn't that? But like the fact that everybody knows that, right?
But
so all that value, yeah, they do, and all that value has diminished, right? Think about how many pictures of people we see with the McLaren, with the villa, you know, sitting in the sunset, you know, and we know now that it's fake. Like people aren't falling for it like they used to, right? And so now the only people who are really kind of bringing in that, like being able to position so well, are the Grant Cardones, because they got a jet. They're like, they got their own jet with their stuff painted on the outside. You know what I mean? Like now you're kind of, okay, well now I know the car is probably rented, so that's not going to impress the average Joe anymore, right? It used to. The Ferrari used to impress us. We used to see you driving around in the Rolls and think, oh, that guy's made it. No, that guy hasn't made it. That guy's made a lease payment. You know what I mean? And you can lease a car. You know, you can drive a nice car for very little money. You can lease it, rent it, borrow it. Now they have weekend Turo. You know, click a button on your phone, and you know, I'm doing a driving experience on Saturday. You know, and you know, it's all supercars, and 90% of it is like, hey, okay, we're going to pull over here and take pictures for your social media, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to skip that part. You know what I mean? I might take a few, but at the same time, like, I'm not. If I do, it's going to be for comedy. It's going to be like, I'm going to be making fun of the guys that are standing in front of the cars and pretending it's theirs. You know, so I don't know. I like,
has a short show as well.
Yeah, you know, but I feel like we all know what you just said. Like, we're like, the world isn't that dumb anymore. So that stuff has lost its value.
So why are they doing it? And why are
because they think it works.
Is it as simple as that?
It's monkey see, monkey do. We copy what we see.
It's funny
because we don't know any better. We think, oh, that works.
Two thoughts on that. I had a meeting with a guy, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, and he turns up in his Ferrari. And don't get me wrong, he's not a out and out. I'm not saying he's a bullshitter. He's not rented it. You know, he's made some money. But I said to him during the meeting, I'm like, So what's that cost you a month? $2,000 a month. He's always wanted one. Fair enough. So I'm not in any way doing him down for having it. But I also said, he reminded me, a lot younger than me, reminded me of when we were in our heyday. And I was never really big into the fancy car stuff or any of that stuff. You know, I had a nice BMW, a little Lotus Elise, which was like running around in a fucking tin can, and it was too small for me to get in and out of, so I didn't use it.
Chick car. You're driving a chick car.
Well, I was, and because my mate sold it me, and then my girlfriend, wife at the time, drove it, and that was it. Never really been into that. I do want an Aston Martin DBS one day, but that's the extent of it. And not to say I've got it, because I think they're lovely looking cars and I want one. But I said to him, he'd been into crypto. A lot of his friends had made serious money in crypto, not bullshit money, like 8-figure money. And I said, and he just, I was meeting with him, and it reminded me of back in the 24, 25, 26 age group, when I used to wire money over to casinos in Las Vegas before I got there. And I could go and, you know, the story of, I used to play on a particular blackjack table, a double-deck blackjack table. And then I'd go up there. I don't know if I told you this story before. I probably have. And I turn up to my table and it's all cordoned off. And there's this geezer playing at the table. I'm like, who the fuck's this geezer? He's got a cordon off. And I'm like, I was really pissed, cocky fucker. I was really pissed off that this geezer had got a cordoned off table I couldn't play. It turns out it was Ben Affleck. I didn't even fucking know who it was. And when I think back to some of them times, this guy kind of reminded me, he's traveling here, there, and everywhere. He's got the money coming in, but is the money going to keep going? Don't think it's always going to continue. That was one of my biggest problems. And I said to him towards the end of the meeting, I'm like, listen, don't forget, just as a bit of a reality check here, I said, that thing you're driving around in is some people's entire wage for the month. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't drive around in it, but just don't forget that. I said, because when I started again in 2009, I had to borrow £20 to put fuel in my car, which I took off my dad. My dad gave me the car just to get back home. And I've been making millions. We both had a life that a lot of people in the past would think is amazing. And it was, you know, I said to my son a couple of days ago, he's talking about going away with a few of his friends on a golf holiday. And I said, do it, because they're the times you'll remember. I don't remember how much money I'd got in the bank back in the day. I remember all the times in Vegas and trips here, there, and everywhere. That's the stuff you remember. That's what money does. But I just, going back to this guy, I said, don't forget it. Now, he may have thought, yeah, you old fart, whatever, you're talking, you know, you're boring or whatever. But I just said, I felt compelled because I could see with some of the things that he was doing, if you're not careful, that's not going to last. And I just said to him, you know, that car, and he always wanted a red Ferrari. Great, you've got it, but don't forget, you know. And then what was the other thing I was going to say? Talking about, so a friend of mine has been in Dubai for a few years. I got two friends. One's been in Dubai. One's been there for 2 years. One guy who's got a really young kid. One of my best friend's sons got a online personal training business, doing really well, killing it. And I saw him a few weeks ago. He'd come back from Dubai. He's going back out there, and then the other guy I know is a bit more my age. He's been over there for years. He's like, I'm not entirely sure how long I'll stay over here. And I'm like, I've never been, so I shouldn't really comment. But from what I know and I've seen of Dubai, one, I think I could get in trouble quite quick. He's like, it's not as bad as it sounds. But I said, the other thing is, I just think there's a lot of bullshit out there. There's a lot of, yes, it's an incredibly wealthy place, but not everybody's driving around in fucking Ferraris and Porsches.
Sure, yeah.
And he said, that's the trouble, Mark. 90% of people are full of shit over here. They're still portraying that, you know, like Dubai's massive for crypto at the moment. There's a lot of crypto stuff going over there.
Sure, yeah.
But there's a lot of bullshit, and it's filtering out that 1 in 10 people that are real and are decent and are doing what they say they're doing and are real. And I'm like, life's too short for that stuff. And it's like I said to him, I'm hoping at some point to move back to the Bahamas. crypto over there is blowing up over there. FTX have moved down there. I've lived down there a long time ago, and I'd like to think I could get back there with the crypto stuff. And I said to him, I said, it's far more appealing to me because compared to somewhere like Dubai, it's more real. Yes, there's some incredible wealth there. You get to meet some really interesting people, but you'll have multimillionaires, if not billionaires. It's more understated. You know, like one of the wealthiest people I ever met there, Sir Jack Hayward's dead now, founded Grand Bahama Island, really, where I lived. He was driving around in an 8-year-old little Land Rover Freelander thing. You know, the founder of Breitling used to live on the island. Nobody knew who he was. He wasn't coming into bars at night, you know, lavish shit.
Yeah.
I said before, one of the wealthiest people at the time I ever knew was a guy called David Vanderpoel from Canada.
I know him.
If you met the guy, you would never know he was a very successful, very wealthy guy at the time. You'd never know. He just acted normally, dressed normally. No, you know, he may have.
Well, Dutch people are notoriously good at hiding their wealth.
Yeah, well, he was, and I like that. You know, like, yeah. And I said to a friend in Dubai, I just, it's not for me. I think if I can go over and be over there, understated. My first mentor said a statement to me years ago. He said, money talks, wealth whispers. I like that.
It's true.
You know, but talking of mentors, have you had any mentors in your past?
Yeah. I had one for a little while in, I would say probably from like maybe 2000, what was it? Maybe 2008. 2005, 2006, maybe. I had this guy, he was a billion, I wouldn't say he was a billionaire, but he owned a company that was making billions, that was doing billions in turnover. He was making a lot of money. I worked with him for a while, and I learned a lot from him. You know, I would say that you know, he definitely taught me a few good things, and then I also had a financial advisor early on, who, and I'd had a couple financial advisors, but this one in particular, he was the first one to sit me down and explain how the money flows, like, to properly, like, many people don't get their head around the basic organizational chart of money, like where it comes from. Not talking about like, oh, it's fiat currency. I'm not going there. What I'm saying is like how it flows with the least amount of tax to you, how it gets invested in a way where when shit hits the fan, the creditors can't touch it. How to, you know, and these were things where, like, when I was young, I'm like, well, what do I got to worry about creditors for? I'm killing it. I'm making a fortune. And he's like, yeah, you are today. And he's like, but, you know, if you have to go bankrupt, if you, and, you know, the ego in me was not prepared to hear you're going to go bankrupt. But then he said, because of the industry we were in the, you know, adult entertainment industry, he said, what if the police raid you? And what if they consider you an obscenity criminal and they seize all your stuff? And he was like, you need to have money in a place where it can't be touched. And I'm like, okay, that got my attention. But it wasn't that. It was the other thing. It was the almost bankruptcy, you know? And you know, he like, I don't know that I considered him a mentor at the time, because he was just selling me financial investments. You know what I mean? But he was selling them to me. You know,
yeah.
But he had an understanding that I didn't have yet, that I needed, and I still have that understanding today. And it's one of those things where, like, you know, people come to me for financial advice. You know, my family, my friends, they come to me for financial advice because I understand intrinsically things that like a bigger picture things when it comes to tax. And I don't want to act like I'm some financial guru. I'm not, but I know, like I at a very young age, I understood how it worked and how to minimize the amount you lose in everything from taxes to fees to, lawsuits to whatever.
Yeah. Unfortunately, back in the day, I didn't ask you for all the advice I should have done. But bankruptcy twice, but you learn a hell of a lot out of that. I've said publicly in the past I'll never own anything of any significant value ever again, because I won't. I'm not doing that again. And it's learning that stuff, and that's what younger people need. So he probably wasn't a mentor. He was a really core advisor to you.
Yeah.
I have an issue with people paying for mentorship as such. I think the best mentors are the ones that want to help you and you've got a relationship with. Certainly, I view you as you're not a mentor, but you're an advisor. And in the past, it's, we shoot the breeze together, and I like to think occasionally I've helped you, and you've definitely helped me. And
I identify more as a man whore than a mentor.
Well, let's not start offending people, men whores. Yeah, we could talk for a lot more, and I'm aware of what we were talking about attention for the podcast, this particular one. But I think if it's okay with you, we perhaps should do another one, because I got a whole bunch more stuff to talk to you about. But I'm aware of the time. I'd like to keep these to about an hour. I'm sure you've got more books to produce as well, and I've got a bunch of other questions to ask. So maybe if it's okay, we'll do another one in a few months' time or something.
Sure. I can go a few more minutes if you want to.
All right, let's go a few more minutes. I'm going to shoot some random questions at you then. What shall we say?
French fries or onion rings? Onion rings.
Yeah. Tomato or tomato?
Serious?
No.
Look at me like he wants me to say it. Tomato.
The last time we were together in London, however many years ago, we had the Chinese. It was great. But that was you introduced me to tofu for the first time ever. Las Vegas. I'm going to take you to this. I'll tell you this story quickly. We probably won't do any more questions because it'll take longer than a few minutes. Vegas, 99, I think it was. Your wife at the time, my wife at the time. Mark, I'm going to take you to this great Chinese restaurant. It's at the time it was the only vegan restaurant around, I think. And I take you to this restaurant. It's great. Okay, so we do it, and then there's slabs of tofu come with a sauce over them, and I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" I tried it, but I didn't get it.
Their tofu was shit. Yeah,
it was the best at the time. I think it
was the best at the time. Yeah.
It's that was my first vegan experience, and I had to have a chicken chow mein as well.
Yeah, I understand.
We'll finish this up now. Where can people find out about you? Where can people go and listen and watch your stuff? Where can people buy your books? Where's the best place for people?
BradGosse.com. Brad Gosse on all the platforms: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Amazon. Looks like Goose, but there's only one O, two S's. Gosse rhymes with boss. And prepare to get offended. You're going to find something in my work, in my body of work. You're going to find something that upsets you. So I'll make you laugh until I make you mad, and then we'll part ways. But if you come back, I won't be butthurt. I understand. It's what I do. I trigger the folks.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. And perhaps we can do another one of these
anytime
online. Thank you. Catch you very soon. Cheers. Bye.
You've been listening to the Get Real podcast with Mark Lyford. Being an entrepreneur isn't all glitz and glamour. Entrepreneurs are some of the most hardworking people in the world. And within entrepreneurship, there's life, mental health, business, ups and downs. And that's why we exist. Our passion is to talk about all of it with no BS. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Find Mark on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube at Mark Lyford. And be sure to hit the website, realeNtrepreneur.com. From there, get his book. You won't be disappointed. See you next time on Get Real.